Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Greg Jennings Show, where we talk all day, every day about Greg Jennings. No, I'm
No,
kidding.
no, no,
You're
no,
listening to the Purple People podcast, but there will be Greg Jennings talk today. You can
no. True.
guarantee that. How you doing, Adam?
Not bad. I'm looking forward to today's show because we are doing our free agent segment. We're going to talk about people that were signed by the Vikings, people that were signed away from the Vikings, and it should be a lot of fun.
And we're gonna talk mostly about Greg Jennings, right?
You might. He's not the one that I love the most, but we'll talk about that later.
You must be Matt Castle fan then, right?
Oh, well, we'll get into that. Don't worry.
Okay, so go ahead and start us off here, Adam.
All right. First off, the first signing we had was before free agency opened. The Vikings locked up right tackle Phil Loadholt. 4 years, 25 million.
Yep, that one was done kind of at the 12th hour, right before free agency starts. The rumors going around the Twitterverse were that, Chicago was interested, possibly interested in Phil. I think the Vikings ended up spending a little bit more on him than what they initially thought, but I am pleased to see him back in Minnesota for sure.
That's almost exactly the notes I had on him. Otherwise, I've got that he is excellent as a run blocker, and he has improved each year in pass blocking, and he is one of the top tackles in the league. So,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of grid did you put on the re-signing of Phil Loadholt?
Well, I put letter grades on everyone, like you're in high school taking a test.
That's
And
exactly how I did it.
oh, cool. And I put an A minus on Phil Loadholt. And I said, the A minus was because they spent, I think, more than what they were planning. But he's a guy that you've got to keep on the team, and he's a homegrown talent. And it's nice to see them reward someone like that.
For the exact same reasons you just gave, I gave him a B plus because I think he's helpful. I think yeah, he could have been replaceable, but to replace a guy of his talent would be pretty difficult and probably more expensive than retaining him. So
Hmm.
I think it was a great move. Not the best move they made, but a great move.
And the last comment that I want to have on Phil Loadholt, and this is going to tie into the next guy we're going to talk about, is Phil had the vote of confidence from Adrian Peterson, which
Yes,
in Minnesota, that is golden. Like, you take his word and you go, Adrian, you want Phil back? We are willing to maybe spend a little more than what we're willing to keep him on the team to make you happy.
definitely.
Which is going
Uh,
to bring us into our next signing. That is Jerome Felton.
It sure is. What are your opinions on Jerome Felton?
Well, he is our resident Pro Bowl player who I think was everyone said the unsung hero of the Vikings run game. And he was able to help Adrian put up just a fantastic season, numbers wise. We've seen just excellent running from Adrian thanks to Jerome going out there and just pancaking people with some hard hits. And I am very glad to see that they got him back on the team. I put an A plus on this one for Rick Spielman and the Vikings.
Now Jerome Felton's contract was 3 years, 7.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is a steal. I had doubts the Vikings would be able to keep him, and they locked him up for 3 years on a very, very reasonable contract. Peterson gets to keep his Pro Bowl fullback, and this is the best move the Vikings made this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
It got a big ol' A from me.
And this is why I am a fan of the 1 year prove it deals that Spielman is, started doing last season for guys like Jerome Felton, who, he had bounced around the league. He'd been with a couple teams. I think he was on the Lions at one point.
Yeah,
And they come in and they say, hey, let's see what you can do. Prove yourself to the Minnesota Vikings. And Felton did it. He's rewarded with a contract. And it just worked out perfect for this team.
sure did. The next guy was also on a 1 year prove it contract, and that's linebacker Aaron Henderson.
Hmm.
Now he signed a 2 year, $4 million contract. I'll go first, and I'll say that I gave this signing a C plus. Now, the Vikings took care of one of their needs at linebackers. He's an outside linebacker, and they were very, very thin at that position. So getting him back helped out a lot. They're going to have to look to secure someone at middle linebacker that's a little bit better in coverage so that Aaron Henderson doesn't have to do as much of that this next coming season.
Uh-huh.
And the Vikings will be looking to the draft to do that, but that's next week. Next week's our draft show. I like the move. I don't love it. I understand it, though.
Yeah, I had a B minus on Aaron Henderson because, quite frankly, we've got to have linebackers on this team, and we not a lot of directions the team is going to be going in. I think they're going to look at the draft for that one. Aaron is a guy that he's reliable enough that you can put out there, and he's not a total liability. He knows the offense, he knows the coaches, he knows the team. So it's a deal that, like you said, I understand, and I'm glad that they brought, that he can come back to the team for another year. Because, like we said, it was either going to be him or Jasper Brinkley, and out of the two, I would have rather seen Aaron Henderson stay on the team.
Agreed. Well, here's the next one that people were really excited about, and that's quarterback Matt Castle. Signed a 1-year, $4 million contract with a player and team option for a second year. Go ahead and give us your analysis on this one.
Okay, well, I wondered pre us recording if Matt Castle eats at White Castle, and
He may.
I'll be here all night, folks, if you want to hear more awesome jokes like that one. Here's the thing about Matt Castle. Perfect situation. He never plays a regular season down for the Minnesota Vikings. That is like the perfect world is we never even have to see the guy. But he's a better backup quarterback, way more reliable than Joe Webb. Joe Webb, that is a failed experiment that we'll probably talk about another time here. If the Vikings were to enter a situation like what happened last season, Ponder can't play for a game, we got to go out there and win. I believe that Matt Castle can step in for one game, folks, and he can hand the ball off to Adrian Peterson. He can make a couple passes to Greg Jennings and Kyle Rudolph, and he can win us a game. If we've got to go out there and rely on Castle for anything longer than that, folks, we're already screwed. My overall rating that I put on Matt Castle is a C because I wasn't that big of a fan of the contract that they gave to him.
I understand that, and my grade is a D.
Ooh, you went low on that one.
Well, here's why. Many people will disagree with me, but I just plain out think they overpaid for him, and they didn't wait for the market to pan out at all. We've seen other veterans released. We saw Cobb released. We saw Fitzpatrick released. We saw, what's his name?
Matt Hasselbeck.
Hasselbeck released.
Yeah.
We saw all those guys released that could have stepped in and done the job for much cheaper. And it's very unlike the Vikings to rush in and throw money at a guy like that when there are plenty of other options out there. Now here's the second part. Matt Castle combined for 31 combined fumbles and interceptions over the last 18 games. That is not impressive. Not only is he not a threat to Ponder's starting job at all, I don't even know if he can motivate him that way, but he's not even an adequate mentor for Ponder. The Vikings need to upgrade their backup quarterback, but I don't like this move at all.
Okay, here's where I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, Adam. He was brought in, I think, specifically because you said it yourself. He's not a threat to Christian Ponder. And that's what I think the team was looking for. They don't, quarterbacks got a fragile psyche here. They want someone with the illusion of pushing Ponder, who in reality is not a threat at all of overtaking his job. And that is Matt Castle. And how much he could actually teach Ponder, I don't know, but he is kind of, and I'm making air quotations here, a veteran who's been around the league for a little bit. He's been in a different couple systems. He knows.
But he hasn't been successful.
Well, he was successful in New England, and to be fair,
Anybody could have been successful in New England.
he played for the Kansas City Chiefs under Romeo Crennel. I don't know if anyone could have succeeded under that.
All I'm saying is that they rushed in, they paid too much, and I don't think the guy is worth the contract they paid.
Yeah,
I don't know if the guy can adequately help push Ponder to be better. I think he's worse than Ponder.
yeah, I mean, if you want to, but then you're not looking at it for who's going to be starting for the team. He knows his role as a backup.
But here's your deal. Okay, let me put this in professional wrestling stuff here.
Okay.
Okay, let's say that uh let's call Christian Ponder the Rock. All right, everybody loves the Rock. He's a great wrestler, right?
Yep.
All right, this is like having Duke the Dumpster DeRossi come in and tell the Rock, okay, this is how you do it.
No, it's not. Come on.
It's exactly like
you're
that.
you're lowballing Matt Castle here quite
I'm
a
not
bit.
lowballing him. He sucks.
No, you're lowballing the guy. I mean, he plays in the NFL for a reason, and he's a guy who's had spurts of success. Okay, over the long haul, yeah, he's not the guy that you want leading your team, but it makes more sense to me to bring in Matt Castle, who has at least had moderations of success than a guy like Tyler Thigpen, who is an absolute nothing. I mean, to sign someone like Tyler Thigpen to me is even more of a waste than Matt Castle. At that point, you
Yeah,
might as
but if you're gonna sign Tyler Thigpen, you've got one trash can you're paying $4 million for. You got one trash can you're paying $1.5 million for. Which trash can's a better deal?
I mean, I guess could they have promoted McLeod Bethel Thompson to number two and went for someone, in the draft. Maybe they could have, but I don't know. I like what they did with Castle. I'm like you. I'm not a fan of the contract, but I think you're selling him a little short, and he should be given a little bit
I
more
don't like the
benefit of the
contract,
doubt.
the situation, or the player. I don't like any of it.
Yeah.
I want out. And guess what? It's a 1 year rental, so he'll be gone next year.
Well, like I said, in a perfect world, he's not even going to play a regular season snap for the Vikings.
I hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
Because 31 over 18 games, come on.
As the Chiefs. Anyway, we should probably move on to our next player here.
Go ahead.
Okay, looks like we got Jamarcus Sanford on the list.
2 years, $5 million was his contract. Now, last season he was fairly solid at safety, but I'm not sure he did enough to earn this style of contract. It's nice to see the Vikings making sure they have competition at the safety position, and it's good to get some solid guys for special teams, and that's why I gave this move a C+. I think it's better than average, but I don't think it's really good. I could see them trying to improve at safety in the draft this year or maybe later on down the road next year, but for now, they've got him there to hold on the ship.
I gave Jamarca a B- because I was not a fan of his work prior to last season. Last season, I thought you really seen a guy who made strides out on the field and showed that he's going in the right direction. Now, like you said, maybe they rewarded him with a little bit richer of a contract than what they should have, but I think they're hoping that by giving him a little extra incentive and saying, yeah, we got faith in you, we like the way you're going, that he'll continue making strides forward. I do think that this is a position that the Vikings are going to be looking to improving throughout the draft and a couple years down the line. I don't quite know where Jamarca fits into the team precisely, but we'll see what happens with him.
Absolutely. Now we're on to one of your favorites.
Hey, Jerome Simpson is back with the team, and I'm not surprised at all. I thought he was going to be back at the end of last season. I remember making the comment that I think Jerome would be back on another 1-year prove-it contract, and especially after we traded Percy Harvin, I was like, yeah, we've got to have someone who knows the system. And Jerome he's getting another shot on the team, and you know what? I like it.
So what kind of grade did you put on it?
I put a B minus on it because he's got a little bit of an attitude problem, which is understandable to an extent. Uh, Tom Pelissero has been kind of rude to him, whatever. But be a be a professional, Jerome. Deal with it. Um, I don't. The whole pot smoking thing that he came on, when he came over from Cincinnati, character issues and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of that side of him. I gave him a B minus because if he can stay healthy, in theory, he should be fast enough to get separation and do something. And with having Greg Jennings on the team, and we're going to draft another receiver in the first round, I believe, Jerome kind of falls back into more of a natural, like his more of a natural spot on the roster, and I think he's going to benefit from that. He was a fish out of water being asked to be the number one, and he'll benefit from having, kind of a reduced role on the team.
Makes sense. This signing made a lot of sense with how desperate the Vikings were at wide receiver to bring him back in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Christian Ponder seemed to have sort of a connection with him during training camp and at some points in the season, but Jerome Simpson was hampered by back injury and
He
he had
said
an
on
early suspension.
he said on KFan that it was his foot. He was having problems with his foot. I think it was his left one, where it felt like it was just permanently asleep, and that anytime he went to run, he felt like he couldn't make his plants because he was afraid he was going to hurt himself. And he said that really hampered him midway through the season, and it wasn't until the last couple of games that he felt like he was starting to get that back. So that's his explanation for what happened.
But he is familiar with the system and he's back on another prove it style contract. Now, my major problem with this signing is that Jerome Simpson was signed back and he was given a raise. That doesn't quite make sense considering that he didn't quite perform up to duties and with the injuries and all that. So I gave this move a C minus. It's a little below average, but I understand it because you need to have that wide receiver that's familiar with the system.
Is it fair to say that when the Vikings signed him to a contract, they were not 100% sure what was going to happen with Greg Jennings, and they were a little bit desperate to just get someone on the roster who knows the system that he's going to line up in the right spot, he's going to run the correct route.
Oh, you're with us on Facebook and Twitter. You saw all the fans freaking out that there's no wide receivers on the roster.
Uh-huh.
So they had to make some move. I mean, the Simpson signing calmed people down a little bit, but there was another signing later on that really helped people calm down, and we'll get to that a little later.
And you're going to look at this and you're going to go, well, were they really going to bring back Devin Aromashodu? I think you kind of, and you go, the upside of Jerome, I think, sort of outweighs what you're going to get with Devin Aromashodu, and I think that also factors into the signing as well.
Definitely. Let's move on to the next free agent signing, which was center guard Joe Berger.
Joe Berger.
He's not a household name, folks.
Nope.
You probably don't know who he is.
He was the top free agent signing for the Vikings. I'm kidding. Hey, he's a guy who, like you said, he can play multiple positions. I am not that big of a fan of his, so I would have liked to seen Jeff Schwartz back on the team, personally.
Right.
So I put a C on the signing because I think Schwartz is a better player than him.
Now, I gave this move a C+.
Yeah?
Because I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing back a veteran to provide depth on the offensive line, especially when they can play more than one position.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back for league minimum, which is pretty awesome to see a player do that and not try to hold out for leverage. He seems like he's happy to be a Viking, and I think that this investment should pay off because of his ability to play multiple positions. and he actually is a pretty decent player. So I like it. Don't love it. C plus.
Wouldn't you have rather had Schwartz though?
Well, Schwartz is a different kind of player. I'm gonna miss Schwartz. I will,
Yeah.
and we're gonna talk about him a little bit later on here.
Okay. Let's get to the big one, the one that has everyone excited. Vikings fans are smiling ear to ear. We got Greg Jennings from the Green Bay Packers. Well, Adam, I'll let you go ahead and take first cracks at this one.
All right. So we're talking about Greg Jennings here. 5 years, 47.5 million, or I believe it was 45 is what I've read lately. I'm not sure which the number is, but it's 18 million guaranteed. Now, I do feel like the Vikings overpaid to fill a need,
Mm-hmm.
but they did so with a low guaranteed cash number. Now, Jennings, when healthy, can be a game-changing wide receiver, but that hasn't been too often lately. The nice thing is that they locked him up for a long-term deal so they can develop him in the system and help grow a connection between him and Christian Ponder. It'll be interesting to see who the Vikings get to work opposite him, because I don't know if they're willing to roll with Jerome Simpson over there, but he's going to need someone a little bit better over there to help get some of the pressure off him. Now, my overall grade for this is a C because I feel like they overpaid a little bit too much, and the way they structured the deal kind of makes me nervous too because in years 4 and 5 of his contract, he's got $11 million cap hits. So I don't really love it. I understand the need, and that's about all I got.
Okay, here's where we differ, you and I. I could care less what they spent for Greg Jennings. I don't care what you're paying him this year, next year, 3 years down the line. I do not care what they're doing for that at all. A plus, Greg Jennings, because we needed someone who can be reliable out there. Has he been injured in the past? Yeah, you know what? He has been. Who in the NFL hasn't missed games and been injured? I mean, come on. Look at Percy Harvin that we just shipped off. Was he ever healthy? Yeah, no, he was never healthy. Sidney Rice was never healthy. Those guys were still dynamic players who could come out and could help this offense. Greg Jennings is a vast improvement over anyone we had out there playing receiver last year on this team. It is going to be exciting to see someone who can line up, run a route, beat separation, catch a football, and get yards after the catch. Because we didn't see much of that last year, other than when Percy was healthy at the beginning of the season. Now, the contract, because we do have to mention it here, it was a 5 year, and I think after about 3 years, the Vikings are going to ask him to restructure. So those last 2 years of the contract, I don't give a crap about him. They are going to ask him to restructure. That is just my belief on that. And they will draft someone in the first round, whether it's Keenan Allen or whoever you want to say, that's going to line up opposite of Greg Jennings on the other end of the field. And I think you're going to have a nice little offensive package out there with Jennings and Allen, and you mix in your Jerome Simpson and of course Adrian Peterson on the field. It should be fun to, and Kyle Rudolph, don't forget about him. It should be fun to watch out there on the Vikings for sure.
So we got a pretty different opinion there on that signing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Let's move into our other free agency notes, and this is where we talk about the people the Vikings have let go or other moves they've made, and let's start talking about Antoine Winfield.
This one this one irks me just based on how it went down. Uh, I I don't know. It just to me doesn't feel right. Like I feel like Winfield's one of those guys that needs to retire a Viking, and they potentially should have maybe done more, maybe talked to him prior to, just flat out cutting him like that. But if that had to happen for them to get Greg Jennings, damn it, it sucks. And I still don't like it, but I do understand it. I want to see him back on the team, though. I really, really do.
Now, I've read that the Vikings have extended their hand to Winfield to try to get him back, but the Vikings do have a lot of young guys at the position too. They got Cook, they got Josh Robinson, they've got AJ Jefferson, but they could still use that mentor out there that Antoine Winfield is. I mean, he was their nickel corner and probably their most reliable guy in the secondary. I'm hoping he can return on a lesser salary, but considering his talent and the way he was let go, I'm pretty doubtful that'll happen.
If there's anyone who can fix this, it's going to be Leslie Frazier.
All
I'm
right, let's talk about what could have been your favorite move of free agency is John Carlson restructuring his contract.
Yay! I am so excited John Carlson took a pay cut. That needed to happen because you want to talk about overpaying someone. John Carlson's name is next to that photo. Uh,
Yeah, that move had to happen.
yeah.
Although his money this year is guaranteed, what he did was best for the team, and it's nice to see him being a team player and understanding his role with the team.
hmm
All right, next up we got Jasper Brinkley, who was signed by the Arizona Cardinals, leaving the Vikings a big hole at middle linebacker, which should easily be replaced in either free agency or the draft. He was absolutely terrible in coverage last year, and is a two-down linebacker at best, and those are easily replaceable.
Like we said on last week's show, I really felt that it was either going to be Aaron Henderson or Jasper Brinkley, one or the other, and I figured they were going to stick with Aaron, and that's what the team ended up doing. I'm
Yes.
not really that worried about it. We're going to draft Manti Te'o in the first round. That's what I think. I think that's going to happen, and we'll see him step in out there on the field for the Vikings, and yeah.
And as you mentioned earlier, guard slash tackle Jeff Schwartz signed by the Kansas City Chiefs.
hmm
Now, the Chiefs get a versatile player who seems to be one of the nicest guys on the planet. It's weird because he graded out better at guard than each of the starting guards for the Vikings on Pro Football Focus, but the Vikings are moving on without him anyway.
I would have liked to have seen him stick with the team because he is a good football player, and he's been talking on Twitter about how he's excited because he's healthy. Like he's had a healthy off season that he can concentrate on football. And I kind of feel like we got a good player when he wasn't quite at 100% on the team, and he should have got more of a fair shot with the Vikings. But hey, NFL's not a fair business, and yeah,
No.
I want to see him do well wherever he goes.
And here's my favorite move, but it's not nice enough, is guard slash tackle Charlie Johnson restructuring his contract. Now, it saves the Vikings about a $500,000 against the cap, but he's still one of the worst pass blocking guards in the league, and this move secures his spot on the roster.
And, we'll not to get too much into it, but I think guard is a position that the team could be looking to fill in the draft. And maybe, they restructure his contract. Maybe Charlie doesn't even make it out of preseason. We don't quite know what the future will hold for him, but like we talked about previously, I do understand, and he understands his role on the team, and he's got
Yes.
versatility out there that you can count on him. So
All right, and you have a question from Twitter.
we do. We usually do this at the beginning of the show, but we kind of jumped right into our free agent signings. So
We were a little excited. Sorry, guys.
yeah, we're going to do this at the end here. This one comes from possibly my favorite Twitter handle that I've seen yet. This is at Golden Codpiece. He he wants to know if you think this is a make or break season for Christian Ponder.
My easy answer is no. I've seen him already develop over the few years he's been playing, and each year he's been getting better and better. And I don't think the Vikings are going to throw that away if he struggles this year, which I don't think he should since they already are investing a lot in the wide receivers, in the running back, in the offensive line, and now in a backup quarterback to quote mentor him. So they're giving him every chance to succeed, and so far he has done everything they asked. So no, I think that even if he struggles, he will be back.
That is my take on this one too. I'm gonna say yes and no that it's a make or break season for Ponder. I think it's important for him to continue to take steps and move forward. And we're coming into his third season in the NFL. We want to see what kind of player he's going to turn into for the long haul for this team. But even if he was to fail and completely stink, this team's probably going to stick with him for at least another 2 seasons
Right.
before they even try to remotely admit that he's not the guy. So even if he, quote, breaks this year, I agree with you, Adam. He's still going to be back, and they're still probably not really going to have someone behind him that's going to be any kind of a threat.
Thank you to at Golden Cod Piece on Twitter for that. And now I've got a couple quick hits that I'd like to mention here. First of all, the Vikings have filed requests to host the Super Bowl in 2017, 2018, and 2019. I'm hoping that the NFL will approve one of those.
I think they will. They're gonna, Minnesota's fought like hell to get this stadium, and the league knows that, so they'll reward the team with a Super Bowl.
Next up, the London game against the Pittsburgh Steelers will be played on September 29th and will be seen on CBS. And immediately following that, the week after, will be the Vikings bye week.
Smart move by the team. They had their choice to take the bye week either before or after the game. So with them traveling all the way overseas, I'm glad that they chose their bye week afterward to let their players come back stateside, take a week off to rest and regroup, and get back strong afterward.
Then I'm always a fan of a later bye week.
Yeah, me too.
Next up, the G4 loan for the Viking Stadium was approved by the NFL. It'll cover $200 million of the team's contribution.
Do not care one bit. Just build the stadium. I am so tired of hearing stadium talk. Like, is it built yet? Like, just tell me when it's built. That's all I care.
Hey, it's good news. It's good news.
Yeah.
The Vikings have about $5 or $6 million left on the salary cap. That is not including their rookie reserve.
hmm
So that's good news for people out there that are hoping they can still make a move or two. And
So
last but not least, the Vikings were not awarded any compensatory picks at the owners' meeting today, but none were expected.
yeah, that was we didn't expect to get any. So
Right.
I think they got what 11 draft picks total. So we're gonna have
Doing fine.
what was that?
We're doing fine.
Yeah, we're gonna have a deep draft class coming in. So
And speaking of the draft, next week is our draft special. We'll have our special guest analyst, Andrew O'Donnell, on here.
yeah, that'll be a fun show.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you guys do a good bulk of the fielding for that one because I'm no draft expert. I'll have my opinions on our dual first round picks, but beyond that, you guys are free to figure out what we're gonna be doing in the seventh round because I have no idea.
So I'm looking forward to next week's show, and I hope you guys are too. I'd like to take a minute to thank everybody for listening and for joining us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, every place you can have us. I'm glad you take us. And remember, everybody, stay classy, Minnesota.